Hello, my name is Susan Jensen Sweeting, and this is my presentation for my senior project for my final course at Antioch University. So what I'm going to be presenting today is a chapbook, which represents a compilation of the work I've been working on over the past year and a half in my studies here. It also includes some other uh, writings that I've done previously. And the purpose of the chapbook is to create sort of a pool that I will draw from in order to submit work to publishers. I haven't had anything published at this point, and my goal, of course, at the end of this is to be published, to be a published writer. I am also currently working on a novel, which I've been working on for 10 years now, and will complete the novel and ultimately submit that for publication. But I figure that a good place to start is by publishing smaller pieces, poems and flash fiction and short stories and some memoir and those types of things. So that's what I've pulled together in my chapbook. The chapbook is called The Appeal of an Arrow, and it's just 28 pages, and it just consists of several poems, one flash fiction piece, a couple of about 3 memoir pieces, and a couple of short stories. And I'm going to be reading for you today one of the short stories. It's going to be kind of a dramatic presentation, which I'm putting together with music and visuals overlaid over the story, and so I hope you enjoy. So to begin, I will be explaining my chapbook. I'll show it to you from an aerial view, and I'll show you the various pages and sections. And the book also has some visuals. Most of it is original art. In fact, it's all original art or photographs taken by me or painted by me. And so that's what the book is going to look like. So this is the chapbook. It's called The Appeal of an Arrow. This cover is a photograph that I took at the Chihuly Glass Garden in Seattle last year. And it's just a soft bound thing that I had it color photocopied today. I printed out the cover on a hard cardstock, and I just basically stapled it together. The contents read poetry, flash fiction, memoir, and short stories. So it begins with my poetry. The poetry is largely about my family, but also some of it is just sort of fictional, some of it is memoirish. This is a piece I wrote about my son, and this is a painting that I did of him a couple of years ago. This is one that I wrote in a class that I did at Antioch. And I actually wrote it on September 11th last year. So it was kind of thinking about that. It was the 20-year anniversary of that big event. And so I just wrote a poem about it. It's called Falling. This is a poem that I wrote about some time that we had up in the Pacific Northwest. We lived in a little cabin for a month right on the water that was also in the middle of a forest, and I enjoyed going for long walks in the forest every day. And these were the views. This was the forest trail, and this was just the sunrise that I would meet. And so this sunrise inspired the poem. It's during a poetry class. These are actually 2 poems that I wrote many years ago. Twilight and Oranges. You'll have to buy the book if you want to read them. This is called The Battle. This is a little flash fiction piece that I wrote in one of the short story classes that I did during my course of study. And then we get on to memoir, which I did in the creative nonfiction class.
I discovered that creative nonfiction was really a lot of memoir, unless, of course, you're a journalist or something like that, or someone who writes for articles for a magazine. But I really enjoyed the memoir aspect of it. So I wrote 3 pieces, or I've included 3 pieces from that, which I quite like. And I discovered in my research of publishers that there's quite a few publishers that are willing to take pieces like this. So that's why I've included them, because I'm going to submit them to have them published. And here we are at short stories. There's 2 short stories. Centerpiece is a piece that I wrote a couple of years ago, and I actually submitted it to a writing contest where it received an honorable mention, and it's received quite a few edits since then. And so I'm including it here because I want to submit it for publication. It's about, an Irish farm in the 1840s. So this is a picture I took in Ireland on farmland right on the ocean, because the farm in the story is on the ocean. And then this is a story that I wrote in the short story class, The Day the Ferret Ran Away. I think it's probably my favorite story in the whole book. And that's it. Those are the stories. So there's my little chapbook. And I may also decide to include, submit the entire book to chapbook publishers, because maybe I could have the work published in its entirety. So there it is.
A single lily springs from the pasture that spans from the farmhouse down to the cliff's edge. The breeze lifts it in a late summer dance, bobbing to and fro, up and down in a graceful prayer. It is a gift, this lily, rising from nothing in its singular performance in defiance of its quotidian surroundings on this particular September day. Despite her toilsome life on the farm, Galis has always loved living this close to the sea. The sound of crashing waves is a constant. Sheep dot the gently sloping hillside as she gazes past it out to the calm, dark ocean. The sky is unusually clear for this time of year. Laying down the potatoes she's peeling, she stands, wiping her gnarled, rheumatic hands on her apron. There's still 3 hours before dinner. Plenty of time to walk the hillside and be back to prepare the meal before Seamus comes in, as has been her habit these 50 years she and Seamus have lived here. They've been mostly spared from the great famine on their generation land. She and Seamus grew up here, together, distant cousins, accustomed to hard work and able to withstand discomfort. Their boys, men now, have stayed, all but 2, living with their wives and children down the way. Oisin was the rebel, preferring politics to farming. He left for Tipperary in 1847 to join the Young Irelanders, luring along his younger brother Rory, her favorite. "We're fighting for our independence," he'd said. "I'll take care of him," he'd said. She'd been crushed when Rory went too. They'd been arrested after the Battle of Ballingarry and convicted of treason. She hears from Oisin 3 times in 10 years. The first time is to say they're being spared execution, but will be sent to the penal colony at Van Diemen's Land, Australia. The second time is to say Rory is dead after a tiger snake bit him while working the potato fields. The last time, this 4 months gone, is to say he's been set free. He returns today. His brothers have hitched the wagon this morning to fetch him. She stokes the fire, sets the cookpot on to boil. It'll be roiling when she gets back. She bends to lace her weathered boots in a measured pace so as not to lose her balance, since more than anything at this moment she wants to spare the Lily from the appetites of the sheep. She knows they would just as easily have it for their supper as she would have them for hers. Such is life on the farm, brutal and harmonious. She steadies herself with her walking stick as she lifts her skirt, tentatively stepping down the back step of her little stone cottage and into the countryside. The uneven field engulfs her. She hobbles toward the lone bloom, determined to have it for the centerpiece at their meal. She wants it in memoriam for Rory. A white lily will settle the tone for the return of the agitator, Seamus's favorite. He is pleased about Oisin's return. She knows there's a small part of him that would have gone with Oisin too, maybe gone instead of Rory, if he hadn't had the farm and the family. He's asked her to cook up something special. He slaughtered a lamb this morning and brought it to her, his blue eyes twinkling as he suggests her favored stew. She wants the lily for peace. She has forgiven him. Like her, he's getting more bent over with each passing year. She doesn't worry. The boys will have the farm, and then their boys after them. More than once she has to stop, leaning heavily on her walking stick. It's a strong, thick branch of knobbled hawthorn that Seamus carved for her last spring, when it was clear she would not be able to navigate the fields without such an aid. It has a natural handle that she clings to, breathing heavily to calm her thudding heart, her aching knees. The afternoon wind has picked up, whipping the untethered strands of her hair into her eyes. She brushes them back and pauses again, looking around to see the progress she's made. Nearly halfway there. The lily also whips around, defying the strong breeze to uproot it. The nearby sheep have stopped their grazing to watch her approach. She totters forward, reaching the flower now, bending low to admire the delicate white cup of its body. It is so graceful, so perfect and strong, all alone here on the hillside, that she has to marvel at its audacity. How it has come to be here she can only wonder, perhaps from the droppings of a passing blackbird. How it has survived against all odds gives her pause. How does a solitary blossom, fragile and redolent, withstand the onslaught of the elements and sheep, while her Rory, her beloved last child Rory, lies mouldering, pushing up Tasmanian blue gum trees, unceremoniously snuffed out in the prime of his youth? She reaches out to grab its stem, but catches herself, loath to pluck it and end its valiant life so abruptly. She withdraws her hand. The creases in her face contort just enough to squeeze a single tear from the corner of each eye. She stands up and gazes down at it, bobbing obliviously. She thinks of all the animals that have passed through their hands and across their table, creatures that have given her family the life they have through their sacrifice. She pulls her woolen shawl around her, knit from the wool of the sheep that they raise, and she changes her mind. There would be no more death today. The lily would live on, perfuming the air around it and bringing joy to those who catch it in their glance, a mortal token of reconciliation, until perhaps it too would become a meal for someone, taking its place in the cycle of life. Galus raises her stick and shakes it, roaring at the sheep. They scatter, startled, and she's satisfied. For now, at least, the lily would live, safe on the hillside overlooking the sea. She turns toward her house in time to see the wagon cresting the hill at the top of her road.